Today is June 5th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today, the core text of the Big Book, we are going to continue our journey through Two Wives, Chapter 8, by reading pages 106 and 107. And out of the personal stories, we are going to continue our journey through Listening to the Wind, the second half of page 462. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we are going to continue our journey through tradition number 7 by reading page 162. So with all that, hope you all are doing well this morning. We've been given another set of 24 hours. What a blessing that is just to be alive today. And if nothing else goes right, if we are sober today, it is going to be a great day. Truly it is. That's not fluff. There are so many things. As a matter of fact, I heard this from a friend not long ago. He said, you know, if you were to write down all the things that you receive from sobriety, all the things you hope to receive from sobriety when you first come in. So I thought about that. What would have been some of the things I'd write down? So I'd write those things down. And then say 3 or 4 years later, go back and revisit that list. And I guarantee you, this is what he said to me, I guarantee you, there would be so many more things that you didn't write on that list that you've received just by being sober. And buddy, that is the truth. There are so many things, so many things that I have received in sobriety that I never saw coming. What a blessing. So anyways, let's go ahead and press on and get to the good stuff this morning. All right, if you recall from yesterday's reading, this chapter was written by the wives of AA, for the wives of AA. And obviously, they gave a lot of scenarios of all the turmoil and the stress and the verbal, maybe even physical abuse that came with those who were married to someone suffering from alcoholism. So we are going to continue that journey by reading 106 and 107 today. Sometimes there were other women. How heartbreaking was this discovery? How cruel to be told that they understood our men as we did not. The bill collectors, the sheriffs, the angry tax drivers, the policemen, the bums, the pals, and even the ladies they sometimes brought home. Our husbands thought that we were inhospitable. Joy killer, nag, wet blanket. That's what they said. Next day they would be themselves again, and we would forgive them and try to forget. We've tried to hold the love of our children for their father. We have told small tots that father was sick, which was much nearer to the truth than we realized. They struck the children, kicked out door panels, smashed treasured crockery, ripped the keys out of pianos. In the midst of such pandemonium, they rushed out threatening to live with the other woman forever. In desperation, we have even gotten tied ourselves, the drunk to end all drunks. The unexpected result was that our husbands seemed to like it. Perhaps at this point we got a divorce and took the children home to a father and mother. Then we were severely criticized by our husband's parents for desertion. Usually we did not leave. We stayed on and on. We finally sought employment ourselves as destitution faced us and our families. We began to ask for medical advice as the sprees got closer together. The alarming physical and mental symptoms, the deepening pall of remorse, depression and inferiority that settled down on our loved ones. These things terrified and distracted us. As animals on a treadmill, we have patiently and wearily climbed, falling back in exhaustion after each futile effort to reach solid ground. Most of us have entered the final stage with its commitment to health resorts, sanitariums, hospitals, and jails. Sometimes there was still screaming delirium and insanity, and death was often near. Under these conditions, we naturally made mistakes. Some of them rose out of ignorance of alcoholism. Sometimes we sensed dimly that we were dealing with sick men. Had we fully understood the nature of the alcoholic illness, we might have behaved differently. How could men who loved their wives and children be so unthinking, so callous, so cruel? There could be no love in such persons, we thought. And just as we were being convinced of their heartlessness, they would surprise us with fresh resolves and new attentions. For a while they would be their old sweet selves, only to dash the new structure of affection to pieces once more. Asked why they commenced to drink again, they would reply with some silly excuse or none. It was so baffling, so heartbreaking. Could we have been so mistaken in the men that we married? When drinking, they were strangers. Sometimes they were so inaccessible that it seemed as though a great wall had been built around them. And even if they did not love their families, how could they be so blind about themselves? What had become of their judgment, their common sense, their willpower? Why could they not see that the drink meant ruin to them? Why was it that when these daggers were pointed out, that they agreed and then got drunk again immediately? All right, some very, very interesting questions here and absolutely heartbreaking. You know, the pain that alcoholism causes. And we'll come back to that in just a minute. All right, my friends. So in Listening to the Wind, we are on page 462 today. We're at a point where our narrator, she's been through a lot. She, as we recapped yesterday, she was into prostitution. She served jail time, was nearly beaten to death, served jail time, meets this fellow Native American. They conceive a son together, but he doesn't stay with her. She meets another man who really loves her, it seems. And because she resorts back to her old career, she's drinking and everything to cover up her double life and the shame from it. And eventually her alcoholism destroys that relationship. So now she's moved once again with her son. It says right here on 462, It took a lot of booze to cover the nightmares of my past, but I was sure that I could get around this small problem before long. I never did. The relationship broke up over my drinking, and I packed my little car, moved myself, my son, our dog, and 3 cats to the mountains. So we're going to finish off this page. This mountain town was a place that I had visited as a child with Dad and Grandma. Memories of the stories of my childhood and our Indian people flooded in. I got a job cleaning cabins for a local resort lodge and got back on welfare. Shortly after our move, my son started school. By this time, I was consuming nearly a fifth of tequila each day, and blackouts were occurring on a regular basis. One day I got up as usual. The last thing I remember was feeling so shaky I could hardly stand up. I ate a tablespoon of honey, hoping that it would give me the necessary sugar rush. The next conscious memory was the emergency room. They said that I was suffering from malnutrition. I was nearly 30 pounds underweight. They had the audacity to ask me how much I drank. What could that possibly have to do with anything? And I promised I would never do it again. All right, so once again, she's changed locations, but her malady is just getting worse. And once again, she's not exactly sure if it's the drinking that's causing all this. It says right here, they had the audacity to ask me how much I drank. But here we see, this new resolve. I'm not going to drink anymore. Let's see if that sticks. I know for me it didn't. But we'll get back to that tomorrow. And finally, my friends, we are on tradition number 7 today. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. And today we are reading page 162. In this connection, Bill likes to tell the following pointed story. He explains that when Jack Alexander's Saturday Evening Post piece broke in 1941, thousands of frantic letters from distraught alcoholics and their families hit the foundation letterbox in New York. Our office staff, Bill says, consisted of 2 people, 1 devoted secretary and myself. How could this landslide of appeals be met? We'd have to have some more full-time help. That was sure. So we asked the AA groups for voluntary contributions. Would they send us $1 a member a year? Otherwise, this heartbreaking mail would have to go unanswered. To my surprise, the response of the groups was slow, and I got mighty sore about it. Looking at this avalanche of mail one morning in the office, I paced up and down, ranting how irresponsible and tightwad my fellow members were. Just then, an old acquaintance stuck a tousled and aching head in the door. He was our prize slippee. I could see that he had an awful hangover. Remembering some of my own, my heart filled with pity. I motioned him to my inside cubicle and produced a $5 bill. As my total income was $30 a week at the time, this was a fairly large donation. Lois really needed the money for groceries, but that didn't stop me. The intense relief on my friend's face warmed my heart. I felt especially virtuous as I thought of all the ex-drunks who wouldn't even send the foundation $1 apiece, and here I was, gladly making a $5 investment to fix a hangover. All right, so interesting here. We see that Bill has a little bit of resentments because other people aren't contributing to help out with all these letters, and here he is giving somebody $5, a big chunk of his pay. But does anyone hear a little bit of the pride in that? I'm noticing it here, and I bet you this chapter is going to talk about that a little bit. But finally, guys, going back to the big book real fast, one more time. 106. We've tried to hold the love of our children for their father. We've had small tots, and we told them the father was sick, which was much nearer to the truth than we realized. They struck the children, kicked out door panels, smashed treasured crockery, and ripped the keys out of pianos. In the midst of such pandemonium, they may have rushed out threatening to live with other women forever. Golly, there's so much about that paragraph that really just breaks my heart. It's so sad to me. Obviously, we've talked about it a few times. If it becomes a physical threat, you got to get out of that situation. You got to get to safety, and definitely find those support groups. Because nowadays, they have Zoom meetings and all sorts of Al-Anon groups all over the country, all over the world. But back then, when this was written, that was not really a thing. But it just goes to show you, I have 2 children myself, and I think about that. And of course, my beautiful wife. If I were to do these things, it would be really hard for me to forgive myself. But that's what alcoholism does. It is a hurricane, we've seen that earlier, that destroys everything in its path. And a lot of times, we're in the eye of the storm. We don't even realize how much destruction we're causing. And then when you start doing the steps and you realize the destruction you've done, at first it can be overwhelming, right? But thank God the steps are organized the way they are. And we can clean up the debris one piece at a time. Every single day, that's what we can do. We can clean up the debris of our past, the destruction of our past, one piece at a time, while having hope for the future. Sobriety is a miracle, my friends, and if you are sober today, you're a miracle. Take a second just to think about what it was like before in your alcoholism. And now think about what your life is right here, right now. And ask yourself, would you ever truly want to go back to what you were doing before? Hopefully you know the answer to that question. But all right, my friends, that's all we have time for today. As always, I don't speak on behalf of AA, NA, Al-Anon, or anything like that. I'm just a guy, just a friend in recovery, in this lifeboat of recovery, and I am so grateful that you're here. I also want to say, I don't look at the numbers very much, but there's people throughout the world listening to this podcast already. And it's a very small group, but I just want to say thank you for listening. And If you ever want to share your experience, strength, and hope, because I'm sure y'all get tired of me speaking at the end of these things, I would love to share that on the podcast. We can keep your name anonymous, obviously, to protect your anonymity. But I would love to hear your experience, strength, and hope. And I forget to tell everybody, we have an email address. It is bigbookdaily@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story, and I'm sure others would too. But we all have a story. And I'm grateful for you, and I hope that your God story continues today. So if we're given a brand new set of 24 hours, I look forward to seeing you guys back here tomorrow.